from CSN New England is Tom Curran. How are you, Tom?
Rich, I could not be more flattered than to have this opportunity to come on your program.
Come on. What would you say that? I love you, Tom. You know that. You're one of my favorite follows on Twitter. I read all your stuff. It's been way too long.
No, I have no doubt of the mutual respect.
Okay.
But I just hadn't had an opportunity, and this is the first one. I couldn't be happier.
Excellent.
I want you, though, to please run that 40 next year and exactly what the players run.
I'm trying.
A flying and a flopping.
No, and there's not a full Monty run in me. There just isn't. You know, I don't think America needs to see that or wants to, quite frankly. But in the middle of all this comes the news about Brady getting a 2-year contract extension. Do we know the numbers and particulars of this, Tom, yet?
We do not yet. And the interesting thing is he has such a cap-friendly and team-friendly contract for a quarterback already. It's the 19th highest among quarterbacks. At 15 million was the cap hit. 9 million is the salary. So they really can't bring it down too much with only a 2-year extension. So we'll see how much relief they get.
And how does he, I guess, why does he do it? I know obviously he does it, you know, to make sure that they surround him with all the other possible talent. But just 5 minutes ago, Washington announced that they put the non-exclusive franchise tag on Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins will now make $19 million next year alone. How does this all work, Tom?
I think part of it has to do with the things that he's articulated over the years about the winning is the most important thing to him. And he's got more money than he necessarily, can spend. And his wife does very well, it seems. The kids are now in a position where they're sunk roots here in New England. They have a new house. They probably want to stay here. So it's that family security notion. It's the fact that with that head coach in place and defense in place, you have the opportunity to be good for a while. And, Rich, I don't think it ever goes away, the notion that whether it's Lawyer Malloy or Adam Vinatieri or Richard Seymour or Mike Vrabel or Logan Mankins, there comes a time when the Patriots will say, you know what, I'm going to make a business decision here, and we respect everything you've done, but we're moving on. And I think that he doesn't want to go out into the great frontier and find out who wants him and for how much. He wants to have that security. He told me in 2013, when he signed the previous extension, that I want to play until I'm 43. Not that he was done that at that point, but that was a point at which he was setting a goal for it. He said that he might want to go further in the days since that, but this would take him to 43.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm on the phone with Tom Curran of CSN New England here on the Rich Eisen Show. So I guess we need to see the particulars of the contract because, Brady, he kind of surprised me and a lot of other people prior, not to last season, but the season before. He sat down with Andrea Kramer on game day morning and essentially said what you said moments ago, which is he knows that he couldn't guarantee to Andrea right there that he would finish his career in New England. It raised a lot of eyebrows right there that he would talk about the reality so openly and that it would be, something that he'd have to deal with. So I guess we need to see the numbers here, right? Because even Peyton Manning's not going to see the final year of his deal in Denver after winning a championship.
And here's the interesting thing. I mean, what sets Brady apart a little bit from Manning, for instance, Manning, fought tooth and nail to not really have to take a pay cut last year, eventually took a minor one. Brady has consistently done that throughout his career, and then Manning is, somewhat vindicated in the end by winning a Super Bowl despite not taking it. But the other aspect of this, too, that I look at, it's got to be about $40 million. You have to give him $40 million extra for the 2 years at $20 million a year when, as you pointed out, Kirk Cousins is playing for 19 and change this year. So the cap is going to continue to go up. But one interesting dynamic that's off-field that enters into this is we watched how DeflateGate played out. And when we look at the fine print of it and what happened last May when Robert Kraft stepped up to the podium in San Francisco and said, I'm going to fold my tent and do what's good for the 32, I know that there was a perception in the Brady camp that was a little bit of a desertion and that Tom was left to fight on his own. And I certainly think that with Bill Belichick, there are occasions where it must dawn on him, why don't we have a first-round pick again? What in God's name were we doing, texting back and forth and giving paraphernalia and memorabilia to equipment guys? Whether or not they have a smoking gun or not. I don't think Bill Belichick is too fired up about the number of things that swirled around that. So apparently they put all that behind them to the point where they were able to find some common ground here.
Well, let's move forward from this point then, Tom. Tom Curran of CSN New England here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's talk about the Garoppolo of it all, because here is a situation where maybe he could be flipped to another team in order to get that first-round selection back or something in close proximity to it, correct? Is that something that's been discussed?
Yeah, and the fine print on that first-round selection is that they cannot get anything over the 29th pick, as they did in 2008. They lost the first-round pick after Spygate, and then they were able to secure a 10th overall pick and draft Gerard Mayo. So the NFL put in a caveat this year. If you trade back into the first round, you can't trade any higher than 29. So what would most likely be the case is they could just, and I think that this is what they more likely would do, they might park Jimmy Garoppolo on the front lawn but not put a for sale sign on him and see if anybody knocks on the door. And if they do, and they can get San Francisco to ante up perhaps their second-round pick, well, then you're right back almost where you were in the same neighborhood. You're around 35 or so, and you can maybe look at that situation. But they really like Garoppolo, and I think you'll hear plenty of "we really like Jimmy" over the next few months to make sure that anybody who is interested is going to be paying a pretty penny for him.
And anybody who might be sick of DeflateGate or think it is over, silly kids, that's not the case. Thursday, there is an appeal that's going down, that the NFL appealing the Judge Berman ruling. That's Thursday. And is there, should that ruling's not going to come down before the draft? It's not expected to come down until maybe even during the season, quite frankly, or close to it. Is there a push by the Patriots to try and get that first-round selection back at all that's going on now, Tom?
There is hope against hope that something might be able to be brokered. And I think that that's what it is. They're holding out hope that somehow their ability to be good soldiers and dummy up, which they generally have done, other than updating their Wells report in context. You know, when the NFL said, look, we're not looking at PSI, we're just looking at procedure. They could have, rattled the cage a little bit and said that's unfair, but they haven't. And I think that they hold out hope that somehow they can have a draft pick restored. But when I look at it, Rick.
It's all right, Tim.
I'm going to call Rick.
Tim, it's okay, Tim. No worries.
When I look at it, Rich, you have, unless the Patriots or Tom Brady says, you know what, in hindsight, we could have done a lot of things differently, and we regret, and Tom Brady says, I regret not cooperating fully, and thereby says that my fight on behalf of the players not setting a precedent for other players to be investigated as I was. He backs out on that. Then the NFL has something. But unless some give back comes from the Patriots in the form of a statement or an acknowledgement, I cannot imagine that they're just going to say, you know what, the $15 or so million we've spent, the jeopardy we've put our CBA into, the fact that you stonewalled us in our estimation, the fact that we, in our estimation, are convinced you did something, forget about it. You can have your first and fourth back, and you're probably going to beat us in court, too. I can't imagine that they would do that.
Yeah, I don't know. But other than that, then the DeflateGate is going to be talked about ad nauseum leading up to the draft. First night of the draft, when suddenly the clock skips a place and there's only 31 first-round picks. It's going to be discussed left, right, up, and down.
How irritated would you be if you're the Denver Broncos or the Carolina Panthers, and all of a sudden you're picking 31st and 32nd, you're bumped down, and everybody else is bumped down because the NFL had a fit of conscience and said, you know what, we overcharged them here. Those are the same people who were rankled about the Patriots getting off easy in 2007. They're not going to say, yeah, give them a pick back. It's unlikely to me. One thing that I could see, the only give back I could see, and people haven't talked about this, is Tom Brady still has a 4-game suspension hanging over his head if the ruling is overturned by Judge Berman. That's really the caveat, or that's really the carrot that could be dangled by the NFL. You know what? We'll drop this thing down to 1 game.
So I guess the only suspense would be, should that happen, is would Brady appeal to the Supreme Court? And the question is, would there be 8 justices still sitting there by the time that appeal is heard or accepted? That's the only question.
Thank you for getting to that level. I'll do another post on that this afternoon.
That's how long it might take. Just throwing that out there here on Super Tuesday. Tom, thanks for calling in. I appreciate it. I look forward to the next time already.
All right, buddy. This was great. Take care.
Thanks. You got it. Tom E. Curran.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.